Colin, I'm going to begin. I mean, the screenplay I was reading is 20 years old.
Yeah.
So just wondering, I mean, how much had to be changed when you kind of got on board? And because the story is telling a very timeless tale, so did you try and maintain much of what was in the original screenplay to kind of maintain that sort of sense of traditionalism, I guess?
I have never read the screenplay that existed 20 years ago. And I know that the writer had been evolving it and changing it as he grew older, as he had a family, children. I only saw something that was still in a very different place than this movie ended up being. You know, when I read it, it was much more of a black comedy, which I wasn't really interested in making. But there were, as you say, very elemental, almost Grimm's fairy tale, Bible story like elements to this thing that I was really attracted to, and we worked very hard together to shape it into something that could feel timeless and classic, feel like a story that you've seen 1,000 times, even though you could argue you've never seen this story before.
Oh yeah, it takes you down paths you didn't quite expect it to. I mean, tonally, was it quite a balancing act for you? Because there's so many kind of things going on in this movie. Was that part of the biggest sort of challenge, would you say?
You know, I may disagree with others, and I think I think it's somewhat. I think it's a tonally consistent movie that has jarring narrative and story turns to it. That the characters continue to exist in the same world. To me, that if the characters started reacting in different ways, reacting to each other in different ways, that would be a change in tone. This, to me, it just takes you on a almost fever dream-like narrative that shifts in the way that I think our world shifts. We go from comedy to tragedy in an instant in our world now, and I feel like this movie tapped into that almost disorienting like feeling that we get kind of on a pretty regular basis now.
And I think you've said in the past that you sort of approached Jurassic World and Star Wars like a kid. I was wondering how you approached this one, because I'm assuming you must have come at it from a slightly different angle than with that kind of established fan inside you, I suppose. Yeah,
I mean, this was as a parent. This was just a very different thing. And I think that, and even with Safety Not Guaranteed, like those are movies that I was tapping into, the child that continues to exist in me, however old and gray I get. This was about something else. It was recognizing that while still feeling like a child on the inside, I am a parent, and my kids rely on me to set an ethical and moral example and to have a compass. And this is about a parent who finds her compass.
And would you say, as a director, that you always maintain a very similar approach and the sort of same sensibilities as a filmmaker, whether you're dealing with massive dinosaurs or kind of spaceships or more sort of human tale like this? Do you always go in with exactly the same kind of approach?
Yeah, because I think that this movie strains believability as much as any dinosaur movie ever could. And the only way to bring the audience with you is to have performances that ground you in a reality that we know, and relationships that make you feel like these are people who could exist on your block, across, in the worst case, next door. And so I think that that's the most important thing is being able to ground this in the most realistic set of performances that you could imagine.
Of course, I mean, you have got probably the final Star Wars movie out, not including kind of spin-offs. I mean, that's an incredible responsibility, but such an exciting one. You must do you ever sort of pinch yourself that you're going to be directing Star Wars? That is so cool.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when does it all sort of get started? When does it all begin?
Well, it's begun long ago, and we've been deep in it for a while, but we don't start shooting until next year.
And just a very final question on the Jurassic World sequel. I mean, you're writing, not directing,
right,
in this instance. Was it quite tough to give a screenplay over to another filmmaker? So I guess you must visualise stuff so much and have your own certain ideas of what you want to do with it. But is there a kind of idea of just kind of giving it to someone and going, all right, it's your baby now?
Yeah, Jay and I worked very closely on the movie. We collaborated through the entire pre-production process. Once it came to the point where it was time for him to shoot, I was never over his shoulder. I did step away. Jay needs nothing from me when it comes to actual, day-to-day filmmaking. And so I was there for him as a writer, and I was there to every day with my backpack, my laptop, whatever he needed, but I was there to serve him. And there was something really satisfying about that for me, that kind of collaboration. There was a bit of a moment on, I think, the very first day where I realized that I could just go get a bagel and no one's going to notice or care. And that was standing outside and looking around and recognizing that it was a moment. But beyond that, I just completely embraced the fact that, you know, I was able to provide him with something that I didn't have myself, which is someone who was on hand to make sure that this thing is cooking every second.
Well, Bryce Dallas Howard told me the script's great, and I believe her, so.
I hope Leo believe her too.
Leo, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, man.
Cheers,
all right, take care.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey, you guys, huh?
Hey, you guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.